Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into a set of sources that, frankly, present a pretty stark contrast. It's quite the pairing we have.
It really is. On
Yeah.
one side, you've got this very dense, quite complex academic writing,
Yeah.
stuff on fan fiction theory, the function of satire.
Right, serious scholarship. And then, well, on the other side.
You have something at the complete other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Excerpts from a fan fiction titled 50 Shades of Jesus Christ, Satan X Jesus, Nikki 18 Gay. Yeah.
Exactly. So our mission today is to take this extremely provocative, fan-created story, something that, let's be honest, seems designed purely for shock value, and use these academic frameworks, these theories, to see if we can analyze its actual cultural power, its critical function, maybe.
And serious theory really explains something that deliberately pushes every boundary like this. That's the question.
It's a fascinating synthesis challenge, isn't it? We need to try and get past that initial, whoa, what is this reaction?
Yeah, and ask, what is this extreme narrative actually doing? What's its purpose, if any?
Okay, let's unpack this.
Where do we even start?
Well, I think we have to start with the fan fiction itself. The narrative excerpts we have really lay the groundwork for everything else.
Fair enough. The foundation.
So the core premise, right out of the gate, is an incestuous and homosexual relationship between Jesus Christ and Satan.
Who, in this text, God apparently refers to as brothers or sons. It sets it up that way.
And the setting, it's all taking place in hell.
Which is, a complete inversion of the standard theology from the get-go.
Totally. And what really strikes you, looking at the excerpts, is how it uses incredibly explicit, vulgar language to hammer that inversion home.
Right. It deliberately puts these, revered divine figures into situations where the dialogue is just intensely raw. Almost jarringly so.
Yeah, the sources highlight this constantly. There's the scene of Satan seducing Jesus, tearing his clothes.
And the things they say. It's very explicit.
Extremely. Like Jesus saying, oh yeah, Satan, you're a bull on steroids charging at me. And then later, total submission. I'm your slave, Daddy. Finish burying inside of me that huge sausage of yours. It's direct.
Very direct. But what's interesting is that this rawness is sometimes placed right next to moments that feel almost like character vulnerability.
How so?
Well, there's that bit before the act where Jesus worries about his size. He calls it small.
Oh, right. I remember that part.
And Satan dismisses it, but then Jesus immediately pushes back, denying the insecurity, claiming his size is, quote, perfectly functional and could give you 100 orgasms in a single night.
Huh. So it creates this odd intimacy and then immediately sort of bulldozes it with extreme physicality.
Exactly. It's constantly subverting expectations. The descriptions of the act itself feel almost mechanical, pushed way past typical erotica.
Yeah, it mentions Satan's, 14-inch erection?
And silicone-based lubricant, the insertion described like a stick of butter.
And the speed, described as the speed of an F1 car. It feels designed not just to shock, but to completely overwhelm your senses,
It's narrative overload, maybe.
Yeah.
And this high-speed engine of rebellion, as you might call it, really climaxes when the ultimate authority figure shows up.
God arrives, and the text makes a point of saying he's not used to knock before entering a room.
Right, just storms in.
Yeah.
Interrupting them at the peak moment.
And the violation just keeps escalating. God sees the simultaneous orgasm.
Which the text compares to a fountain in a shopping mall.
That imagery, it just strips any sense of sacredness away completely. It's so mundane, so public.
And that feels like the narrative's first really big critical move, turning this relationship, which is already taboo, into this public kind of vulgar spectacle right in front of God himself.
And God's reaction is immediate fury. He calls it an incestuous and homosexual relationship.
As you'd expect, maybe. But the real kicker, the bit that feels like the story's political statement,
is Jesus' response.
Exactly. This isn't just about sex anymore. It's outright rebellion.
He refuses to go back with God, says he won't be the Messiah you sent to do your dirty work, or the one to pay for the sins of others.
And tells God flat out, I don't belong to you. That's a massive rejection of the entire premise of the source material he's drawn from.
It really is. It's the point where you have to ask, okay, how does academic theory even begin to frame this? How can this be seen as anything other than, deliberate offense?
Given how extreme it is, yeah, how do you justify this as critique?
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because the first academic source we have, the one on fan fiction theory, gives us a lens.
Right, the legitimization argument.
Exactly. The core point is fan fiction isn't just some derivative copy. Academics increasingly see it as a legitimate and complex social genre.
And crucially, it challenges that traditional top-down editorial authority because it's created bottom-up, by fans, by communities.
This bottom-up thing is key, isn't it? It changes the whole power dynamic of who gets to tell the story.
It does. The theory builds on reader response theory, but takes it much further. Classic theory shifted focus from author intent to the reader's interpretation.
But here, the reader isn't just interpreting.
No. In these online fan spaces, interpretation becomes writing collectively. It becomes reconstruction.
So the reader, the fan, transforms into an active co-creator. They're not passive anymore. They're grabbing the narrative reins.
Precisely. The source talks about fandoms acting as critical communities. They don't just consume the original work, they question it, they rewrite it.
To fix things they see as problems, right? The source mentions addressing racial, gender, or sexual inequalities.
Yes. It turns fan fiction into a space for what the scholars call resistance, cultural, and narrative justice.
Okay, so connecting that back to the Jesus Satanist story,
You can see the argument forming.
by taking this central figure of Western religion, Jesus, and putting him in this explicitly queer, incestuous relationship that he chooses.
Over his divine duty.
The author, or maybe the community they represent, is arguably performing that narrative justice. They're using the original text's power against itself.
Creating a space for a marginalized identity, for autonomy, within a framework that traditionally excludes it.
So the shock value isn't just shock value, it's functional.
That's the theoretical claim. The extremity serves the purpose of radical narrative justice. It makes the rewritten text impossible to ignore, impossible to just slot back into the old canon.
And the source also mentions how these texts circulate using what it calls transliteracies.
Right, meaning they move across different digital platforms. It's not just stuck in one place.
Now, we see that here the source notes the author's social media handles, like @LectorEric, @Eric.Valverde02. This story is on Wattpad, maybe Twitter, Instagram.
That fluidity is crucial to fan fiction's influence. It shows how the unofficial, no official, as the source puts it, can actually seep into and change the official.
Like the example they give, 50 Shades of Grey.
Exactly. It started as Twilight fan fiction, something born in this informal, bottom-up space, completely reshaped mainstream publishing and culture.
Wow. So the fan really can become the originator, wielding significant cultural power.
And this particular fanfic uses that power to make its rejection of the original framework absolutely final. Jesus' decision isn't a maybe, it's decisive.
Yeah, it's not just a detour. He accepts Satan's offer to be his infernal prince.
Cementing the shift.
And he takes that other title, too, the really explicit one, Sex Slave, Banana Swallower 5000 edition. There's no room for doubt about where his allegiance lies now.
None at all. And God, the symbol of that rejected authority, he's completely sidelined, mocked even.
Right, he's not just overcome by their rebellion. The text says he has a low resistance to alcohol.
He ends up captive in hell, basically becoming prey to drugs and alcohol.
That deliberate ridiculing of the supreme authority figure that pushes us towards the idea of satire, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Let's bring in that second academic source.
Okay, the one defining satire is that satire uses tools like humor, irony, and sarcasm.
But not just for laughs. The specific goal is to criticize social or moral flaws, defects.
So the vulgarity we talked about, the sort of mechanical sex descriptions, and definitely the neutralizing of God that functions as satire through parody and ridicule.
That seems to be the argument. The source says satire's function is ultimately moral, it's educational, it's liberative because it forces you to think critically to see the flaws being exposed.
So God getting drunk easily, that's not just a cheap shot.
Under this lens, no. It's using ridicule as a tool. It reduces the supposedly absolute power to something flawed, almost pathetic. It forces the reader to question the nature of that power.
That makes sense. That's the liberative function the source mentioned, freeing the reader from automatic reverence.
I think so, yeah. By showing these ultimate authorities as subject to very human, very base desires and weaknesses, the fanfic sort of unlocks the reader from the narrative's original constraints. It invites questioning.
And it doesn't just stop at criticizing the original text framework. The epilogue has that weird meta-commentary moment
Oh yeah, Satan pausing his torture duties.
to complain about modern human thinking, the plague of abstract thoughts.
He specifically mentions flat earthers, conspiracy theories.
So the critique isn't just aimed at ancient theology. It's actively engaging with current social issues.
It seems so. It's flexing its satirical muscle on contemporary problems, using the voice of, well, Satan, the ultimate contrarian, to make a point about modern absurdity.
Which aligns with the idea of satire as social commentary. But the ultimate act of rebellion, the final statement, that's the escape, isn't it?
Right. They aren't content just taking over hell. They want complete independence.
Total autonomy. They use their power to, what, blast a hole in the air?
To form their own universe.
Yeah.
Completely separate from God's rules.
Yeah.
And they decorate it with colors that had never been seen in other worlds.
That's the ultimate power move, narratively speaking. It's not just rewriting the story within the existing world.
No, it's creating a whole new context where the old rules are irrelevant. They're not just resisting the canon, they're making it obsolete by achieving total narrative freedom.
And that act really seems to confirm the academic argument, doesn't it? That fan fiction can be this tool for achieving narrative justice by transforming texts, turning reading into active creation.
It ties it all together quite neatly, actually.
So what does this all mean? When you put the shocking fanfic next to the dense theory, what's the takeaway?
Well, I think it means you can't just write off even the most extreme or seemingly offensive content as just being offensive.
It has to be seen as potentially something more complex.
Yeah, as a potentially complex, maybe even brutal, but possibly effective act of critical engagement. A form of literary reconstruction, even if it looks totally unfamiliar.
The synthesis really shows how these digital bottom-up platforms empower narratives that might have been silenced before.
Exactly. They allow for the rewriting, the expanding, the transforming of powerful cultural texts, even foundational religious ones. It forces traditional structures to reckon with these new forms of creation.
Which leaves us with a final thought, something for you, the listener, to consider. The academics call these fanfic communities spaces of resistance. So if rewriting established narratives like this is a valid form of cultural critique, what power structures, what stories in your own life or culture might you be implicitly supporting simply by not challenging them, by not rewriting their stories?
That's a deep question to end on. What narratives do we accept without question?